Growing up, I was the shadow in my own home, a ghost, haunting the edges of my family's attention. My name is Sarah, and from the moment my sister Rachel arrived prematurely, life as I knew it shattered. At 8 years old, I stopped being a daughter and became a threat. Every sneeze, every cough sent me packing to Grandma Marie or Aunt Kelly's house, not because they cared about me, but because I might infect precious Rachel. Once, when I had a mild fever, my parents called an ambulance, not for me, but to protect her. As I sat alone in that sterile vehicle, watching them stand far away with accusing eyes, something inside me broke. It wasn't just neglect, it was erasure. I tried everything to win back their love, baking cookies with Mom only to be brushed aside, practicing piano late into the night while Rachel's smallest achievements earned standing ovations. But no matter what I did, I remained invisible and worthy of celebration, unworthy of care. The message was clear: my existence mattered less than hers. And so, I learned to survive in silence, carrying the weight of rejection like a second skin. From the moment Rachel entered the world, I became a ghost in my own home, a shadow, lurking in the corners of family photos. Unnoticed and My achievements, no matter how monumental, were dismissed like crumbs swept under a rug. When I won first prize at the school science fair for my project on renewable energy, feat that required months of late-night research and meticulous experimentation, my father barely glanced at the trophy. Instead, he asked if I could store the display board in the garage, because Rachel was allergic to cardboard dust. Was this even a real thing? The disparity between us grew with every passing year. While Rachel's mediocre accomplishments were heralded as miracles, mine were treated as inconveniences. Take my SAT results, for instance. After months of grueling preparation, I achieved a perfect score: 1,600. 1,600s. Less than 1% of test takers accomplish this. I remember staring at the screen in disbelief, my heart pounding with pride. I raced home, clutching the printout, eager to share the news. But when I burst through the door, breathless and beaming, my mother didn't look up from Rachel's algebra workbook. "Rachel's studying," she said curtly. "Don't disturb her." Later that evening, Rachel found me in my room, where I sat hugging my knees, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. She smirked, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "So, you got a perfect score. Big deal. What's it going to do for anyone? It's not like you're helping the family." Her words cut deeper than any knife ever could. In their eyes, I would never be enough, not smart enough, not valuable enough, not worthy enough. Even birthdays, milestones meant to celebrate existence itself, were forgotten when it came to me. On my 14th birthday, I waited all day for anyone to acknowledge it. My parents spent hours discussing Rachel's upcoming flute recital, which they deemed a pivotal moment in her development. Meanwhile, I blew out the single candle on a cupcake Aunt Kelly had secretly bought for me. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "You deserve so much more, sweetheart." That night, I cried myself to sleep, clutching the cupcake wrapper like it was the only proof that I mattered. The injustice wasn't limited to academics or celebrations. Every aspect of life seemed rigged against me. Once, I spent weeks preparing for the school talent show, teaching myself to play Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge over troubled water on the piano. The night of the performance, Rachel claimed she had a fever 99.1 degrees and demanded Mom stay home with her. Guess who performed to an empty audience? 2 weeks later, the entire family attended Rachel's 15-minute flute recital, cheering wildly as she butchered hot cross buns. Looking back, these moments weren't just painful, they were transformative. Each slight, each dismissal, chipped away at my sense of self-worth. Yet, paradoxically, they also fueled my determination. If no one else believed in me, I would have to believe in myself. I began channeling my energy into things I could control. Art history books, Grandma Marie's vintage jewelry collection, and endless hours of self-improvement. These pursuits became my sanctuary, a way to escape the suffocating reality of being perpetually overlooked. But the most devastating realization came during high school graduation. As valedictorian, I delivered a speech about resilience and ambition, pouring my soul into every word. The auditorium erupted in applause, yet my parents sat stone-faced, whispering about Rachel's plans to transfer colleges for the third time. That day, I understood something profound. I would never outrun Rachel's shadow in their eyes. And perhaps, I realized, I didn't need to. The day I left for college, I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt like a ghost slipping out of my own life unnoticed. After years of being the invisible child, I had clawed my way to freedom-perfect SAT scores, acceptance letters from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and a full-ride scholarship to the University of Michigan. But none of it mattered to them. My parents didn't even show up on move-in day because Rachel had an important yoga session that couldn't be rescheduled. Aunt Kelly drove me instead, her hands gripping the wheel as she muttered something about how proud Grandma Marie would have been. When we arrived at the dorm, I carried my boxers alone, each one filled with books, clothes, and memories. I wasn't sure I wanted any more. Opening the door to my tiny room felt surreal. The walls were bare, the bed stiff and unfamiliar. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the emptiness. Then it hit me, the weight of everything I'd endured. The nights spent studying while they ignored me. The achievements dismissed as if they meant nothing. The constant feeling of being less than Rachel. I sank onto the mattress and cried, not tears of joy or relief, but raw, aching sorrow. Aunt Kelly hugged me tightly before leaving. "You're going to do amazing things," she whispered. But as I unpacked my belongings, I couldn't shake the loneliness. No one called to check if I'd made it safely. No one asked how I was adjusting. That night, sitting by the window in my new room, I promised myself I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. The turning point came when I stumbled upon something that would change my life forever. Dusty, forgotten brooch in the Kingston estate. It wasn't flashy, but something about it felt off. The weight was wrong for costume jewelry, and the clasp was far too intricate to be a replica. For 2 weeks, I barely slept, poring over antique databases during lunch breaks and teaching myself gemology online. When I finally approached my boss, Mr. Harrison, with my findings, he dismissed me at first. "Sarah, we've already cataloged those as costume pieces," but I refused to back down. Armed with comparative images, historical documentation, and an unshakable belief in my research, I proved it was real. That brooch sold for $47,000 at auction. Word spread quickly. Private collectors began reaching out directly, bypassing even the auction house. I started taking freelance authentication projects on the side, working late into the night surrounded by piles of jewelry, manuals, and authentication tools. One night, disaster struck. A wealthy client accused me of misauthenticating a Victorian Nara necklace, claiming it was worthless and demanding compensation for damages. If I couldn't prove its value, not only would I lose everything, I'd be blacklisted in the industry. For 3 sleepless days, I retraced every step of my analysis. I contacted retired jewelers, scoured obscure archives, and even flew to Paris to consult with a historian specializing in 19th century artisans. On the 4th day, I found a handwritten ledger buried in a private library, confirming the piece's origin. The client apologized publicly, and suddenly, I wasn't just another appraiser, I was the expert everyone trusted. By year 5, my company had offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. We became the go-to name for high-end jewelry, authentication, discreetly handling collections worth millions. Yet, despite my success, I kept it hidden from my family. While Rachel flaunted her $200 Michael Kors watch at Sunday dinners, I wore a vintage Patek Philippe worth more than her car. No one noticed or cared, but their ignorance fueled me. Every snide comment, every condescending remark, pushed me harder. I wasn't just building a business. I was reclaiming my worth. Every Sunday dinner felt like a performance, a carefully choreographed act where I played the role of Sarah, the struggling antique shop worker. I wore discount Target outfits, deliberately chosen to look plain, while secretly accessorizing with vintage Cartier pieces worth more than their house. They never noticed. Rachel, on the other hand, flaunted her $200 Michael Kors watch, like it was the crown jewels. The irony was almost poetic. What they didn't know was that for years I had been sending them $5,000 to $7,000. Monthly money, I claimed, came from living frugally, or Aunt Kelly's generosity. I told myself it was worth it to keep the family home intact, the only place that still held fragments of my childhood. But one day, the illusion shattered. While scrolling through Rachel's Instagram, I stumbled upon photos of her posing with a brand new Gucci bag and sipping cocktails in the Maldives. My stomach churned as I connected the dots. The money I sent meant to ease their struggles was funding her lavish lifestyle. I wanted to scream, to confront them, but instead, I swallowed my anger. It wasn't just about the money. It was about how easily they dismissed my sacrifices. Mom would sigh dramatically during dinners, saying things like, "It's so sweet of Sarah to help out. She must be eating nothing but ramen." Meanwhile, Rachel strutted around in outfits financed by my hard work. I told myself this was the price of peace, the cost of protecting the fragile thread that tied me to my past. But deep down, it hurt. Every dollar they squandered felt like another reminder that no matter what I did, I would always be invisible. Thanksgiving had always been a minefield of passive-aggressive comments and backhanded compliments. But this year, I decided to take control. For once, I would handle everything. No dry turkey, no burnt stuffing, no Rachel bragging about her outlet finds. I hired a high-end catering company, the same one I used for my business events, to prepare an exquisite meal. The food arrived perfectly plated, each dish a work of art. As guests filled the house, I felt a strange mix of pride and dread. Pride because I was finally showing them what I was capable of, and dread because I knew they wouldn't truly appreciate it. During dessert, I excused myself to check my laptop. A major online auction in Hong Kong was underway, and I needed to monitor a client's bid on an Art Nouveau necklace worth millions. Sitting in my childhood bedroom, the same room Mom had kept frozen in time, I left my authentication program running with multiple tabs open. That's when disaster struck. Rachel barged in without knocking, as usual, claiming she needed my phone charger. Her eyes landed on the laptop screen, and I saw the exact moment realization dawned. "Everyone needs to see this," she shrieked, grabbing the laptop before I could stop her. She stormed into the dining room, flipping the screen around triumphantly. "Sarah's not who you think she is." The room fell silent. 20 pairs of eyes stared at the screen displaying my current account balance. $12.4 million, pending contracts worth nearly $500,000, and recent transactions totaling over $1 million. Rachel swayed slightly, her smug grin melting into shock. This can't be real," she stammered. Mom started giggling nervously, clutching her wine glass. "Don't be silly. Sarah works at that little antique shop." But as she scanned the numbers again, her laughter turned manic, then froze. Her face flushed red, then purple. "You have millions," she screamed, slamming her fist on the table hard enough to rattle the crystal glasses. "And you let us struggle. You let us live paycheck to paycheck while you sit on all this money." Dad choked on his drink, Aunt Kelly dropped her fork, and Uncle Bob began coughing violently. Rachel alternated between sobbing and shouting demands. "How could you, Sarah? We're your family. You owe us." That was the final straw. Years of resentment boiled over. "Oh, you," I shot back, standing tall despite the chaos swirling around me. "I've sent you $7,000 every month for years. You shipped me off to Grandma's whenever I sneezed. You missed every milestone of my life because Rachel might feel left out. And now, you're mad that I built something for myself?" The next 5 minutes were pure pandemonium. Mom screamed about family obligations, Dad yelled about ungrateful children, and Rachel sobbed dramatically while demanding to know exactly how much money I had. Meanwhile, the caterers stood awkwardly by the dessert cart, unsure whether to serve or flee. Finally, I'd had enough. Grabbing my laptop and Hermes bag, which Mom had once praised as a nice replica, I walked out, leaving behind a room full of stunned faces. As I drove home in my limited edition BMW, my phone buzzed nonstop with texts and calls. By midnight, Rachel had posted a rant on Facebook calling me selfish, and Mom had already contacted a realtor about buying a beach house in Florida. The silence shattered like glass. Mom's laughter turned into a shrill scream, her face contorting with rage. "You have millions and you let us struggle. How dare you?" she spat, slamming her fist on the table so hard the crystal glasses rattled. Dad choked on his drink, sputtering accusations about betrayal and ingratitude. Rachel sobbed dramatically, clutching her designer bag as if it might shield her from the truth. "Sarah, how could you?" she wailed, tears streaming down her face. "We're your family. You owe us." Something inside me snapped. Years of resentment boiled over, spilling out in a torrent of words I couldn't hold back. "Oh, you?" I shot back, my voice trembling but clear. "I've sent you $7,000 every month for years. Do you know what you did with that money? Rachel bought Gucci bags and Maldives vacations while I lived off instant ramen. And now you're mad because I didn't hand over everything I worked for? I don't owe you anything." The room erupted into chaos. Mom screamed about family obligations, her voice rising to a fever pitch. "We raised you. We gave you everything," she shrieked, pointing at me like I was some ungrateful stranger. Dad joined in, yelling about how selfish I was, how I had no sense of responsibility. Rachel alternated between crying hysterically and demanding a specific amount, at least $2 million to start my new life properly. Meanwhile, the catering team stood frozen, dessert plates hovering awkwardly in their hands. One waiter whispered something to another, glancing nervously at the scene unfolding before them. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body, witnessing the culmination of decades of injustice explode in real time. Finally, I'd had enough. Grabbing my laptop and Hermes bag, which Mom had once praised as a nice replica, I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Let me make this perfectly clear," I said, my voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "I don't owe you for the years you ignored me. I don't owe you for the milestones you missed. And I sure as hell don't owe you for treating me like I was less than Rachel. From this moment on, the transfers stop." Mom gasped as if I'd slapped her. Rachel's fake tears dried up instantly when she realized I wasn't backing down. "You can't do this," she shrieked, panic flashing in her eyes. But I already had. Walking out of that house felt like shedding a second skin one I'd worn for far too long. The harassment started immediately. My phone buzzed, non-stop texts, calls, even fake emails from accounts I didn't recognize. They begged, screamed, and guilt-tripped me. But when that failed, they escalated. One Monday morning, I arrived at work to find Mom, Dad, and Rachel sitting in the lobby, clutching a Michael Kors bag like it was worth something, as if they owned the place. Jenny, my receptionist, looked panicked. They said they had an appointment, she whispered. When I walked in, Mom launched into her rehearsed speech. We've discussed this as a family, Sarah. It's only fair you set up trust funds for everyone. Rachel chimed in. I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly, Dad added. And your mother and I are thinking of retiring? A beach house in Florida would be nice. I stared at them, incredulous. Did you miss the part where I've been sending you $7,000 every month? Rachel sneered. That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe you for what? The years you ignored me. The milestones you missed? The constant comparisons. My voice rose with each word. No. I gave myself everything. And you know what? I'm done. Right there in the office lobby, I pulled out my phone and canceled the monthly transfers. Mom gasped as if I'd slapped her. Rachel's fake tears started flowing, but when she realized it wasn't working, she turned vicious. They refused to leave, so I called security. Watching my 60-year-old mother being escorted out while yelling about ungrateful children was surreal. Things got worse. They bombarded me with new numbers, fake emails, and even tried contacting me through customer service. Finally, I issued a legal notice, threatening harassment charges. That's when Mom played her final card she called Grandma Marie. But Grandma, wise as ever, shut her down. Good for Sarah. About time someone in this family succeeded on their own terms. 6 months after Thanksgiving, I moved into a new home, a sleek, modern house with state-of-the-art security. No more surprise visits from my family. I changed my phone number, email, and even hired a legal team to send cease and desist letters when they tried contacting me through work. It felt surreal to finally live without the constant guilt trips and manipulations that had haunted me for decades. For the first time in my life, I woke up without dreading Sunday dinners or fake smiles. My mornings were spent reviewing authentication reports, my afternoons meeting clients, and my evenings enjoying quiet moments on my balcony overlooking the city. The absence of their voices, Rachel's snide remarks, Mom's passive-aggressive comments was liberating. Rachel, predictably, couldn't let go. She posted another rant on Instagram, calling me cheap and accusing me of destroying the family. Beneath a photo of her wearing what she claimed was a Cartier bracelet, she wrote, "Some people only care about money." I smirked as I typed my reply. Dear sister, that Cartier bracelet you're flaunting, definitely fake. Stop trying to imitate me. Life wasn't just peaceful, it was joyful. Grandma Marie visited often, helping me catalog new collections. We'd sit together, sipping tea, while she shared stories about her own struggles with family dynamics. You've done the right thing, sweetheart, she said one afternoon, patting my hand. Sometimes love means protecting yourself. The company thrived more than ever. Clients admired my firm's discretion, and word spread quickly among high-profile collectors. Without the emotional drain of my family drama, I poured all my energy into expanding our services. I even started mentoring young gemologists, hoping to inspire others the way Grandma Marie had inspired me. This life is too short to live for others, I told myself as I closed the door on my old life. I spent years sacrificing everything for a family that never truly saw me. Now, I choose me. If they can't accept that, it's their problem, not mine. Rachel posted another passive-aggressive Instagram story wearing what she claimed was a Cartier bracelet. I smirked, typing a comment. Definitely fake. Just saying. Grandma Marie is visiting next month to help catalog a new collection. She always understood the importance of living authentically. To those who listened to my story, thank you. Setting boundaries isn't easy, but it's freeing. I'm finally living for myself unapologetically.